It is a very, very exciting topic. So now we just
Romance.
wait for people to join.
Yes. Romance is probably the most exciting novel topic, in my opinion. Out of all of them, I would rather be talking about romance.
It's such an easy read, though. It is. It is really just such an easy read. Like you're not always in the mood for like a fantasy book or a sci-fi book or something like that. Sometimes you just want to sit down with a book, easily digest the actual content, which you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just that, it's that romance has this feel good vibe to it. And you
Hmm.
know that regardless of all the drama, the oomph that's coming
Yeah.
on, there's gonna be a good ending. Although these days, to be different, people are making sad endings, and that has been really getting on my nerves. Like, I don't know if you've read the book and seen the movie The Fault in Our Stars, where the one
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
dies in the end, and that Me Before You,
Me Before
I
You
was,
absolutely
oh,
destroyed me. It
it destroyed
absolutely
me.
destroyed me. It was awful. It
It
was
was
so
the
well written.
worst. Because
It
I was
was so,
thinking, oh yeah, she's showing him that he can have a life. They can then he's a millionaire. So I mean they can go anywhere. They can have a real life. And then he's just like, no, but I still wanna die.
yeah, yeah.
No.
I wanted to stop after the first one, but then I just needed to know that she's getting a happy ending somewhere. And
Yeah,
she,
I
yeah, the
mean,
next
kind
books
of.
actually did that. Hi everybody. How's everybody doing today? I see that we have some people that have joined. So in the chat, do tell us where you guys are from, what the weather is like currently. Um, yeah, just go ahead and let us know.
South
Half
Australia.
past
Hi
one
Ross.
in Australia. Hi. That is, thank you for joining. Thank you for staying up so late to join us today.
What's the
That's
time in
it's very
Australia just
flattering.
now?
It's three. Sorry, it's quarter past. No, half past 1 a.m. currently in Australia.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We're very happy to have you here, Ross.
Also, go ahead and tell us what kind or why you guys are excited for this webinar. The topic. Yeah, just go ahead. Tell us in the comments. If you have questions already, pop them in the comments as well. We are collecting them because at the very end we are going to be doing a Q&A. So pop them in the comments in the meantime, and then we can go through them at that point.
Yes, fellow South Africans, it is the heat is insane. I am
It is.
dying. I'm festive. It's Christmas. But I get so sad when I see all these beautiful white Christmas movies and I just think I am dying of heat. We are
Yeah.
literally experiencing a heat wave right now and I would
Yeah.
like nothing more than a beautiful white Christmas, honestly.
Yeah. 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 We're expecting 37 degrees Celsius next week Wednesday.
You're kidding me.
I am not kidding you. It is. Okay, we have some comments. Let's see.
How many sex scenes should be in contemporary erotic romance novels? That's a good question because when you think about romance and contemporary romance and you think about erotica, they're not completely the same thing. So if
Mhm.
it's just like erotica, then it's what makes the story are it's the sex scenes and it's about the intimate relationship that comes with the sex scenes. But if you have a contemporary romance, then sex is it's an interesting part of the book, and ladies like myself love the sex scenes, but I wouldn't say go over maybe 30% of your book. But if you're mixing
Yeah.
contemporary erotic romance, I'd say put a good amount, but not too much. Michaela, what do you
Yeah.
think?
No, you definitely need some substance to your story. Otherwise, it's just. you're just going to be go ahead and be blushing the entire time while you're reading this. You definitely, there does need to be substance. There does need to be some kind of there does need to be some kind of storyline or plot, which we will also be diving into anyway in the presentation. So, yeah, there definitely does need to be some kind of structure and character progression. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out for you. Of course, there are books that are literally only erotic. So it does depend on the kind of book that you are going for, but usually a story is preferable. Okay, so, I think we can get started. We've given everybody 5 minutes to go ahead and still join. So, if there are some stragglers coming in later on, we will be this video will be live on YouTube. It will be live on, I believe, Facebook and on LinkedIn as well. So you can go ahead and you can watch the video afterwards as well. So if you missed anything, you can go ahead and watch it. But okay, we can get started. So, this is basically who we are. My name is Michaela. I am the senior sales agent here at the Urban Writers. I have 7 years of writing experience. I specialize in fiction writing, basically romance, fantasy, children's books. I've done it all, but romance, fantasy, children's books, those are the ones that really do just have my heart. I've also written over 272 books at the moment, and I've been at the Urban Writers for 4 years now, going on my fifth next year, early next year. So basically part of the furniture at this point.
Hi, I'm Gwen. I have been a professional writer for about 4 years, and I definitely specialize in romance. I live and breathe romance, but I do also write about real life relationships, such as real life romantic relationships, more in the sense of nonfiction, parenting, a bit of everything.
Yeah. So we have some experience on the panel today. So it won't be the blind leading the blind, I'll assure you. We have a, a wide variety of experience between the two of us. So yeah, we can go right ahead and move on to the agenda. So right now, we will be going over why children's books are a good choice. We will go over what it takes to craft a good romance book, and then we'll also be discussing challenges and tips, how to overcome those challenges, and what you can do in order to make sure that your book is going to be a success. And then at the very end, we will have a Q&A as well. Now, this is who the Urban Writers is as a company. We were found in 2018 by Marco and Natasha Matinho. They have built the company from the ground up. We started with a handful of writers. We had external editors that did everything. We didn't have a platform, and it was literally only nonfiction. And in the 5 years since, we've grown up to over 3,000 freelancers that are vetted and onboarded onto the platform, that you can go ahead and browse through, and you can basically chat with them and see who you want to work with. And we've written over 1 billion words as well. And again, we've grown from having a single customer to over 20,000 active customers at the moment. Okay, now we can go over why romance books are so popular. Now, first thing is that it is the highest, well, the highest selling fiction ebook genre. This takes up it takes up 39% of the actual book sales, of fiction book sales. So this means that of all of the other genres like fantasy, children's books, even sci fi, that needs to make up the other 61%. where romance fiction is literally 39% of that. There's also been a 52% increase in copy sales from 2022 to 2023, which is absolutely massive. So, again, it's just increasing every single year. Then we also do have endless possibilities. There are hundreds and hundreds of different tropes that you can work with, that you can mix and match, that you can see, okay, this works, that works. Like I said, the possibilities are absolutely endless. And then the next part is that the genre never gets old. We will read things like, oh my goodness, Pride and Prejudice. That's been written a very long time ago, but we still read that, not only because it's a classic, but because we're a sucker for romance. So it just never gets old if you can get into that space where people will look back and think, oh, that was an amazing book back in the day. You're going to reread this, and they're going to give it to their children and give it to their friends. So it just never gets old, really.
Okay, so let's talk about crafting a great romance book. Since we've spoken about how popular romance books are, it's pretty obvious that there are a lot of them. They are everywhere, in every language, in every country, they're everywhere. So, what does it take to craft a good one? The first thing I'm going to say that you need to look at is planning. You need to have a solid outline. So, for those of you that don't know what an outline is basically the planning of your book. Some people write their own, some people use ghostwriters or companies like ours. Whatever way you choose to go with, it needs to be solid. There has to be a good storyline, and the upcoming tips will be established in your outline. So, the things that we're going to talk about next are things that you're going to want to put in your outline, because whether you're writing the book yourself or whether you're having a ghostwriter write it for you, these things need to be set out clearly. It's not a good idea to have a very sparse outline, because especially if you're using a ghostwriter, you need to be able to convey your image and your message to this other person. And if you're writing it, it's tempting. It's very tempting to want to just begin writing. You have this story idea and it's going to be a bestseller. They're going to make a movie about it and you just want to get into it. And that's tempting, but you shouldn't do that. This is why. Firstly, you need to look at your tropes. There are so many different tropes. Love at first sight, opposites attract, romanticizing stalkers. Those are not a good idea and they are overdone. What is good? Enemies to lovers, pen pals or secret identity, work adversaries, rich versus poor, unequal social status. Although this needs to be realistic, so probably don't take it too far. Arguably, some of these tropes could be said that they're overdone and they've been, they're everywhere, but it's not always about the trope. It's about what you do with it. Think outside of the box and be unique. So, now the real important things. You need engaging and relatable characters. It's tempting to want to write about the perfect people, the leggy girl with the beautiful tan and the guy whose muscles have muscles and they're just perfect. No. They need to have flaws. You need to embrace complexity, because this makes them relatable to your audience. A mix of strengths and vulnerabilities. This keeps your readers interested. But now, with that being said, you still need to be careful about how you're going to convey this. It's not going to be very entertaining if you just say that Sarah was really bad at math. Okay, she has a flaw. She's really bad at math, and you just said it. No, 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 no. What you're going to do is you're going to want to go and show this. For example, Sarah is in high school. Sarah is writing exams and she failed her math test. This is a very silly example, but this tells you how you can show that your character has a flaw without bluntly saying this. Now, you need to consider your main audience. For example, I was talking about a high school girl just now Who's your main audience? Are you directing your book at teenagers, or are you directing it at adults? Well, some adults like myself, I like reading, books about teenagers. For example, the Twilight series. That's a teenager, lovely romance story. But this gets important. A lot of women and men older will not necessarily be able to relate to the mindset of a teenager. So you're going to have to think about flaws and vulnerabilities that fit in with your audience. Now, the next thing that you can find important is you need to establish conflict. There needs to be dramas, highs and lows, but they need to be believable. Don't go for the most insane things that you can think about. There's an earthquake suddenly in 2020 in an area where there are never earthquakes, and the two are they're stuck together under some kind of mountain. Unless you're going for that kind of thing, but it needs to be realistic. One thing I would suggest you to do is to do research. If you're going to have highs and lows, how would people really react to that? So let's say the main character loses their job. How would somebody react to that? If you don't have the personal experience, it can be difficult to convey this. So think about how people will react to this. Google the psychology and write about that. And remember that your highs and lows still need to flow, and you shouldn't be jumping from one scene to the next. There's a saying that goes, oh, they're just throwing in all kinds of crazy things to keep people watching. When you think about things like television series, they're just starting to throw in all these crazy events. That happens, and that's not good. So don't go from one extreme to the next and the next and the next, and everyone's just falling all over each other. That's not a good idea. It's got to be realistic. For example, partners wanting to be together, but they get mad at each other because of some kind of misunderstanding. That has been done too many times. So don't make it too cliche either. Your ups and downs need to be interesting enough to capture your audience, but maybe not too cliche. So the scenario I just gave you is something that has been done again and again and again. Character A and character B, they like each other, they want to be together, but some kind of misunderstanding, means that they can't be together until the end. So this is the big low or the high that's going to happen now is this person told another person, oh, I don't like the color black, and my partner is like this complete fan, and their whole bedroom is black and or pink and blue, and now we can't be together because we don't like the same color. But actually the other one is also not a fan of black, so don't do that. Okay, so the next thing you need to think about is building chemistry and tension. If characters don't have chemistry, what do they actually have? Like Michaela once said, if there's no chemistry or tension, they're basically just two people who are forced to fall in love for no reason. So there's got to be small things. You've got to show why people fall in love. A good example of this is taking your character, and this character looks at the other one and they think, wow, this person has a really sweet smile, and it's something that I really notice about them, and it makes me like them. And maybe the next day this other character helps a sick puppy, and this is just so sweet. It's the kind of thing you're looking for. Simple examples. Of course, your individual story will have its own, you know, tropes and interests and storyline, but look at a way to explain why these characters are falling in love with each other without also, once again, bluntly stating it. So, this is where internal monologue can really be helpful, but you also don't want to overdo it. Um, you want to think, for example, your character goes, oh, wow, character X just helped that puppy, and it really touched me because I had a puppy when I was a kid, and nobody helped me, and it was really, a little bit of internal monologue. That's great, but don't overdo it. If you're a fiction enthusiast, you've probably heard the saying, show but don't tell. Now, this is important. Of course, there are things that you're going to need to tell and explain, but it's better to be able to show the people that there is tension. For example, you're not going to just say, Emma felt the tensions rise between herself and Mark. You need to describe the specific actions, behaviors, and physical sensations. You would rather say that as Emma walked into the room, her gaze inadvertently collided with Mark's, causing an immediate shift in the air. She noticed the subtle tensing of his jawline and the way his eyes lingered a moment before darting away. Now, avoid purple prose, don't be too poetic, but do you see how this kind of makes you feel the tension? You feel that, oh, their eyes met and his jaw tensed, and it felt the air shifted. You feel the tension. As a reader, you're picturing this moment instead of just saying, oh, there was tension in the air. Okay. So the next really important thing that you need to consider is emotional growth. Real people change with time. They learn from their mistakes, they make mistakes, and it's not just about the visible changes though. It's also about the things that we don't see, like the internal growth. What drives your character? Everyone, especially an interesting romance novel character, has something that drives them or a reason for doing something, like, or being a certain way. There's always something. Is it positive? Is it negative? Will it grow into something even more positive? Will it grow into something negative? Will the negative thing be more positive? Inner conflict, work with it. So your internal monologue is also helpful here because you can talk about um, your character has this conflict and they're thinking about it. It's helpful, but again, don't overdo it. Maybe in the beginning of the book, the main character avoided the beach because of some, I don't know, more traumatic experience that they went through when they were a kid. Insert backstory for context. But by the end of the book, the main character and the love interest go on holiday to the beach. We don't say blatantly, yeah, there was this growth and the whole book played a role, and whatever happened in the novel, this is why they're going to the beach. We see the character now goes to the beach. They grew. Maybe, you know in this context, it was a beach romance story, and I don't know, whatever happened between them and their love interest caused them to grow and to kind of overcome the trauma and the experience that they've had. So that's something you need to consider. The next really important thing is your dialogue and your narrative. So, dialogue is very important for romance because talking is important in real life and in actual love. You fall in love with someone by speaking to them. And I'm not talking about infatuation or a crush. I mean, you can see your favorite celebrity and you think, oh, I'm so in love with them. That's not love, that's a crush. It's You're infatuated with them. But what really causes that deep connection, that real love, is speaking to each other and not just sharing your own self with that person, but taking in what they are sharing with you. So in this end, you need to focus on keeping your conversations realistic, set in real places, and they need to flow well. Of course, you still need to focus on the whole show part to show that characters are attracted to each other by the way they speak to each other. For example, romance character A is a bit of a Grinch, doesn't like Christmas or whatever. They're a bit of a mean person. They have really short conversations with everyone. But Roma's character B, their love interest, is someone that they actually feel comfortable with. Now, instead of saying they feel comfortable with this person, so they spoke for 2 hours, you show that they actually have a longer conversation with this person, and a deeper, like a more meaningful conversation. It's not just, oh, how's the weather out there, Bob? Oh, I don't know, Sarah, it's great. And lots of fish out there to catch. They're having a deep and a longer conversation. Conversations need to be meaningful and realistic. Also, you can't just go say, "Oh, it's a snowy day. Hey, Susan, did you notice that it's so cold and it's snowy outside?" "Oh yeah, I'm wearing 3 layers of jackets because it's so cold." "Oh, hey, do you want to go to dinner tomorrow night?" No, 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 no. You're going to firstly show that the weather is cold. Maybe Susan felt a flake of snow drop on her nose or whatever. Show that it's cold, and then focus on having a realistic conversation. If you're not sure, research. Research. People think that fiction is fiction, so we want to just write anything we can, pull it out of a hat like a magician. But that's not how it works. You still need to do your research, not only for how people would react to conversations, how these things would really go, but also your world building. Yes, this is not fantasy, but you still build a world. So your main character lives in New York, for example. If you're not based in New York and you've never been there, you're going to need to research what it looks like, how the weather is, um, how the buildings are set, all those things you need to be able to research and make notes about how that goes. This is again where your outline comes in handy, because you need to record these things in your outline. But it's not only that. For example, your character will have a favorite bakery where they get their favorite cupcakes from twice a week. you know you're building a world for your character. So research is still important for fiction, and not only for nonfiction. This brings me to our next important thing, is memorable moments. There are going to be ups and downs and memorable moments in your book. You've got your big conflict in your, all of that is there. But that's not all that matters. The smaller but memorable moments matter just as much. For example, the couple just met, and the one character has a massive fear of thunderstorms or rain, whatever, and the other character does something to take their mind off of it, helps distract them, help them feel better. It's not necessarily, one of the oomph moments in your book, but it's got to be something that your reader is going to remember. Um, let's say one of your characters could really generally be a disliked person, and this is a popular kind of trope, and then the other character cracks a joke, and this person smiles. It's not only memorable, but this also shows a bit of growth and change as well. So, I mean, if you've been reading a book, and this main character has been this grumpy dude or whatever throughout this whole thing, and suddenly they're smiling, it's going to be something you remember. But it doesn't just necessarily have to be something so obvious. It can be smaller moments. Michaela and I were actually talking the other day about a book she read, and she mentioned that the characters were in a log cabin and it was snowy. And she doesn't necessarily remember much about the book or what it was about, but this moment is something that she remembers, and it makes her want to read the book again or suggest it to people, because it's a moment. It's that moment makes you feel something. It makes you feel this feeling of nostalgia, or this warm feeling like, oh, this was a really good romance book. I remember they were sitting in this log cabin, they were having hot cocoa, and it was so great. I don't remember what the storyline was, but this is it. So memorable moments count. Again, they don't have to be huge. They don't have to be obvious, but think really about your scene setting. Don't just have your characters sitting in a car and having a conversation, because then, even if your conversation is memorable and you've got a good conversation going, it's not necessarily going to be a memorable moment. Do a bit of scene setting. That's again where world building and research will come in handy as well, because you're going to read about what the weather is like in Canada. You guys are saying it's snowy this time of the year. So if you're going to set your storyline in November in Canada, you're going to know it's snowy, and your people are sitting and they're having a drink and it's snowing outside, and they're looking at how beautiful. I've never seen snow in real life, but imagine insert beautiful description of snow. Okay. And they're having a good conversation. That's a memorable moment that people are going to remember. Because even one thing you need to remember about a book is any kind of book, not necessarily romance, any kind of book, is this is not a movie. It's not a picture. I mean, unless you were writing a children's book, you're not gonna have pictures. You might have your cover of what your two main characters look like, which is helpful. As a, someone who writes and reads a lot of romance, it's really cool if you have a cover with your characters, because then it kind of helps with the whole picture in your head thing. But anyway, you're not necessarily going to have pictures throughout your book. So you need to be able to really convey what things look like, sound like, smell like, everything. Okay. So the next important thing that you need to think about is your pace and plot. So your book is about romance, okay? And you've got your main characters, and that's your storyline. But think of life. In real life, you've got a whole boatload of other stuff going on outside of your romantic interest. You're not just seeing someone and this is your whole life. You've got work, you've got school, you've got everything. There's stuff going on. Subplots. You've got subplots. For example, things you need to find as important. Let's say your characters meet at a charity event. Why are they there? Or if we're going into the more mythical, magical side of things, there could be some kind of elf council meeting, and it's during a troll war. You need to put some effort into the subplots. Are they on the same side, or are they opposites? That's an interesting trope. Are they there for different reasons, the same reasons? Michaela also once said that without a plot to drive the story, it's gonna be two people who run to each other at a coffee shop and they're talking about the weather and the good old days in high school, and that's it. Without the main plot, yeah. So, with a proper plot and subplots, they might have something they could actually talk about, which again falls in line with your realistic conversations. Because you're not just going to talk about, oh, Bob, you have the most beautiful eyes. I'm so in love with you. Oh, Sarah, I can't stand to be without you. No, you're going to talk about, how was your day? You're a teacher. So you're going to talk about, oh, today at school, ugh, this kid did this and this and this. You can have real life conversations as well. And there's got to be something that forces maybe your characters to work together, in some way, or ensures that they run into each other again. Because if your characters were to meet at a coffee shop, for example, if they exchanged numbers, then, sure, they started texting, going out, whatever. They see each other, boom, there's your story. But there's also, a lot of these romance books have chance meetings. Okay, they met at a coffee shop, but in the background, they're both really into charity work. So now they meet again at this charity event. But there's a subplot. How did they get from the coffee shop to the charity event? It's not just one scene to the next. You've got to have a bit of a story. Your character A works for this company and they've got a boss. They've got different characters. You can't only have your two main characters. Different people. Think about famous romance, Romeo and Juliet, which is probably not a good example because they were teenagers and they both died in the end. But even Romeo and Juliet had other characters. They had Mercutio, they had the nurse, and all the parents. Subplot: their families were in war with each other, so there are different aspects. Why was their love forbidden? Because their families were in some kind of feud. So that makes the story interesting. The main character could, for example, be on a journey of self discovery, and they're on this vacation and they're at the beach and they really want to find enlightenment. Like, why? Why are they wanting to be on that journey? What do they want to achieve? And then character B could be juggling too much at work, or they have kids and whatever it is, and they need to take a break. And they end up at the same holiday resort. So that actually shows personal growth because they're gonna be like, oh, work has got to, setting boundaries and all that. And there's a reason for why they're meeting. So, you know, one of the first romance novel started somewhere for a reason. And if I can leave you with one thought, when you Google things on the internet, they're gonna show you what they call pinch points and all these things, but and plot points, and if you want to get more technical, but in my experience it really doesn't matter. There isn't a like win all recipe for romance. Romance is unique, and what the uniqueness is what makes it work. It's what makes it memorable. Google is going to give you recipes for the perfect romance novel or story. You need to add a pinch point in the X% of the book and this number and this number. Like, where does this information even come from? It comes from existing popular books. I mean, like I said earlier, the first romance novel started somewhere for some reason, and it worked. People liked it. And yeah, these things can be helpful. Definitely, definitely. Especially if you don't know anything about romance. This is your first time, writing about romance. It can be helpful. But you don't have to sit and follow this recipe to the T and this percentage. This is where you need to add this and this. Everything we discussed today is vague enough so that you can still take it and turn it into your own unique story. These things are helpful, but again, you don't have to follow it to the T. What keeps the readers are the unique aspects of your story. No reader is going to sit, like if I'm reading a romance book, I'm not going to think, oh, okay, we're on 32% now. There's got to be something now. No, 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 no. That's not what I'm thinking as a reader at all. I'm thinking about my characters, their development, what they're going through, what they're experiencing. What's keeping me on the edge of my seat is not necessarily any recipe. The thing you need to
Yeah.
remember is you need to make
Sorry,
it your
I'm interrupting.
yeah. Go
As
ahead.
long as it is interesting, there isn't really a recipe. As long as
Exactly.
it's interesting, as long as you're enjoying writing it, and as long as you're enjoying, if you're getting a ghostwriter to write it for you, as long as you're enjoying reading it while it's being written, then it's an
That's what
enjoyable book. There isn't a
that's what
specific
matters.
formula. Yeah.
That's how
So
bestsellers are made.
definitely. So, with on that note, we can move forward to the challenges and tips because we do touch a little bit on these topics there as well. Now, the first tip basically is book talk. Now, personally, I've always been a fantasy reader and writer until book talk came along and I just fell down the romance rabbit hole. Of course, my cat may or may not have run over my Wi-Fi router and disconnected it. So,
No.
but we're back. It's we're good. Life with cats, I guess. Um, okay, so we can definitely move forward and let me see. Where was I? Book talk. That is where I was. Now, Book Talk is a fantastic way to both see what other books are currently on the market as well as market your own book. I follow these amazing authors on Book Talk, and they will post little teasers of their book or the announcement dates or little cover designs, fan art even that people have done of their books. And this is it's an absolutely fantastic way to actually market and basically go about putting your book out there and making sure people see your book. The other thing with TikTok is that people are recommending book after book after book on TikTok. So it's really amazing if you can reach out to a if you can go ahead and reach out to creators and say, okay, listen, this is a book that's coming out. I'd love for you to read it. I'm going to send you a copy. Read this. And then after that, go ahead and promote it on your channel as well. TikTokers, you don't need a big subscriber base in order to get views. That's the beauty of TikTok. You can, as long as your hashtags are perfect or you use the correct hashtags, you're going to get views. So yeah, Book Talk, fantastic. Same goes for YouTube. YouTube, you do need some subscribers, but with Book Talk, TikTok, same thing. With that specifically, you don't need the actual subscribers. So that's a great way of marketing. Next is choosing your target audience. Now, Gwen has lightly touched on this previously. Your target audience is a very important decision for you to make. Because again, some people who are 40-year-olds are not going to want to read about a 17-year-old. It just, I don't, I'm 26. I don't want to read about a 17-year-old anymore. I'm over it at this point. Because a 17-year-old thinks completely differently. And then you sit there and you think, either they're too mature for their age or they're too immature for my liking. So, so it does depend on really who you want to target. Do you want to target teenagers? In that case, it's not going to have more advanced tropes and subplots. It's going to be about school. It's going to be about teenage romance. It isn't going to have heavier topics. Where if you go into young adults, if you're even going into dark romance, those topics are going to be a lot darker and a lot heavier, and that specific character needs to go ahead and deal with it in that way. So, again, choose your target audience very carefully. Every on Being completely honest to you, every target audience will eat up your book as long as it is a good book. So whether you're targeting teenagers, adults, even pensioners, whoever you are targeting, it is a popular it is a popular genre for that age range, for any age range really. So it really does just depend on the kind of book that you want written or that you want to write. Next, we have standing out and having things like cliches and tropes. Now, there are very, very popular tropes, such as enemies to lovers, um, friend friend to lovers. There is best friend's brother, or brother's best friend, something like that. There are all of these tropes that are very popular, and although they are popular, it means that the market is saturated with those tropes. So when you are using a trope like that, you need to avoid cliches and you need to make it unique. So instead of having enemies to lovers and brother's best friend trope together, which is what everybody does, you can have enemies to lovers, and then you can have sunshine and grumpy, the sunshine and grumpy trope, which is literally a grumpy character, a sunshine character, and those two come together. So you need to stand out using those specific tropes, and avoid cliches. Avoid the, like Gwen said, the miscommunication, and now the whole relationship is up in the air. Miscommunication is one of the worst tropes that you can go after. Everybody's complaining about it. It is not a great trope, even though it is easy to write that into your book. It is an easy conflict to put into your book. That does not mean that it is a good kind of conflict. Rather, ignore the conflict and create a different kind of conflict. Instead of having conflict between the characters, have conflict characters against the world. Next up, we have the saturated market, which again works with the tropes and cliches. You want to stand out. You need to stand out. It isn't just with romance. Any book that you're writing, if you're doing nonfiction yoga books, there are thousands of nonfiction yoga books. You need to be unique. You need to write your book or have your book written or have topics that are really just unique to you specifically and to the presence that you want to build online as the author of these books. And then basically, just you can reach out to us at sales@theurbanwriters.com at any point. If you do have any questions or concerns with publishing your book or choosing tropes, we do have amazing blogs on our website that you can go through. We also do have basically a writing tool, a little helper called Dibbly Create, which allows you to do market research. So if you subscribe to the helper, you get access to AI assisted content, so you can get market research done, you can get book descriptions, you can get help with your outline. It's up keyword research even. So it is a fantastic tool to use. If you're not sure where to go, definitely get assistance from something like that, where you can ask AI to give you some input on these specific markets, see what's popular, see what will work for you, and then adjust it accordingly. Okay, we can move on to what's next. So, this is very, very exciting. Next up, so this will be next week, I believe. We are having a webinar on fast tracking your romance book. Now, this is going to be how to set up your order with the Urban Writers, what we need from you, best practices. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So if you're not sure how exactly to go about it, definitely do check out this webinar. Again, it is going to be on our socials as well if you do want to check it out later on. But definitely, if you have questions, it's just easier to ask it in the chat, and then we can handle it on the actual the webinar as well. So that is coming up. And then, as mentioned, we are having a marketing webinar as well, early December. So if you have questions about marketing your book, definitely attend that one as well. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We have marketing experts that will be doing it, so definitely check it out. And now we can move on to our Q&A. Now I'm going to check out the chat as well. And then yeah, and my lovely assistant in the background is also going to send me some questions because we have quite a bit of them. So if we don't get to your question, we will be reaching out to you from wherever you went ahead and commented from. We will go ahead and answer questions if we can. You can also go ahead and reach out to us at sales@theurbanwriters.com and ask your questions. We are more than happy to assist you via email, or we can always hop on a call as well if you do want to discuss it face to face. Now, let me get some questions going. So, how to choose the right romance topic? Now, again, this does come down to market research. Personally, I would suggest hopping on Amazon, going into the little book section, and then searching for romance. See what pops up first. See what the best sellers are at that moment in time, and then base your topic and tropes on that. Again, be unique. You can mix and match. You can see, okay, this is enemies to lovers. This is going to be, again, same examples. This is going to be best friend's brother, and merge the two and see what happens from there. But definitely do check out bestsellers that are available at the moment, and base your decision on that. Okay, how do you stand out? Now, a very good thing with romance is to it is easy to blend into the background, but it is also easy to stand out. If you have good characters, even if you don't need good characters and a good plot to stand out. You can do one or the other. It is literally just deciding, okay, my main character is going to be this sunshine, peppy chick, and she likes to ride bikes everywhere, but she also has a dark secret. Her family is actually in the mafia and this and that. And that gives you a unique storyline that you can then work with. So, definitely, the way that you stand out is creating unique characters and creating unique plots. One or the other, both are great, but if you want to do one or the other, that helps as well. Okay, how do I market my books? Okay, so again, TikTok, fantastic. BookTube, fantastic. Social media in general is very good. We are having a marketing webinar early December, so check that out. In general, it does depend on the genre of book that you are going for. For example, if you're doing a middle age romance, you're not going to post it on BookTok because the or your target audience isn't on TikTok. So it does depend on the age range and the audience that you do go with as well. Okay, the next question is coming up.
How much character development and world building should I provide to a ghostwriter? I'm going to be honest with you, and this might sound like it's a lot of work, but I would say not only with world building and character development, like as much detail as you can give your ghostwriter is recommended, because remember that you're two different people who have two different views, and you want them to capture your view. And for some people that can be an extreme difficulty in romance, and for others it's a positive thing because you have views from different angles. So point being, add as much detail as you can. If you want to have the setting to be specific, then give that to your writer. If you're not really too bothered, it needs to be a city setting or maybe a jungle setting or beach setting, but you're not really too bothered about the specifics, then you don't need to add information. Your ghostwriter can definitely use their imagination to add a bit to that. But character development and so on, I would say as much information as you can give, you should do that. Do I need to provide an entire intricate plot to the ghostwriter or just a rough idea, main themes? It really depends on how much you want to put in there of your own um, your own mindset, your own story. Like, do you have specific ideas of what you want this to be, or are you a little vague of it? See, here at the Urban Writers, we kind of have we kind of have a rule where we do prefer that you have a proper outline for your ghostwriter. We do really want to have an outline with your chapters and what you want to happen. So it's definitely better to give them a good outline than to just give them rough ideas or main themes. Unless you are really okay with them taking the lead and taking the story far away from you, then yeah. But if you're not sure how to convey your message or to create the plot, we have a plot outline where you work with an editor and a writer who can help you with that. Okay, a strong outline is required. That's our answer. I'm sorry. Must every story have a perfect ending? Absolutely not. A lot of stories don't. I mean, I spoke about Romeo and Juliet earlier. It is a famous romance story that has survived for literally hundreds of years. How does it end? In death. So, no, it doesn't have to. As long as it's meaningful, it mustn't just be like, just ends. I would say the ending needs to be meaningful in some way, but it doesn't need to be perfect or happy. But many people do like happy endings. I'm gonna be honest. I like happy endings, but yeah.
I was on mute. Most people want happy endings, but there are also people that just love the more morbid books. Again, it does depend on your audience and what kind of book you really want to write. Because a book that's really sad, I'm trying to think. There's literally a book called They Both Die in the End. Absolutely fantastic, but it's heartbreaking. But sometimes you're just in the mood for something like that. So it doesn't need to have a happy ending. It can be straightforward from the get go. It's not happy and it's not going to have a good ending. And then people are still going to read it. So, no, it does not need a happy ending. Okay. So if your question has not been answered yet, please go ahead and repost them in the chat. It seems to have been a glitch somewhere and we can't find them just at the moment. So please just go ahead, just pop them again in the chat if we haven't gotten to you yet, and then we can answer those as well. We still do have a bit of time to go over those. Okay. Um, Let me go ahead and just read this comment. So the tool that you can use is called Dibbly Create, where you can go ahead and we'll send. You can go ahead and just check out our socials, that kind of thing. There are always links to Dibbly Create there, but you can also just go and just search Google Dibbly. So that's Dibbly Create, and that will pop up, and you can check it out there. There's also a little video that showcases everything that you can do. Okay. What do you prefer? An open ending where the reader can use their own fantasy, or a closed ending where the author makes the end itself? Personally, I like an ending. I don't want to wonder what happens to characters. I want to know, yes, they're happy. No, they're not. They did not end up together. They got married. They had a kid. They didn't. They ended up, they actually had a wonderful romance. And then they ended up marrying somebody else. I personally like an ending that's. I hate a cliffhanger as well. I cannot stand cliffhangers, but that's personal. Many books end with cliffhangers because it's a series, and that kind of gets you to read the next books. But then again, if your book is out and you have a cliffhanger, that does mean that write, readers are going to have to wait for the next book to come in or to be published, which is a pet peeve of a lot of readers. So do be careful with cliffhangers if you are doing series. But in general, you can, of course, you can do an open ending. Most people prefer just a solid ending and to know what happens next. Okay. So that is the only other question that we got in at the moment. Again, if you do have any other questions, please reach out to us at sales@theurbanwriters.com. You can also reach out to us via our socials, and we can definitely assist you there as well. We're always happy to help. Always happy to hop on a call with you guys and go over anything that you might still want to go over. Literally, just reach out to us. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely chatting with all of you. Thank you to Gwen for joining us as well. It was awesome hearing you chat about everything and getting that input as well. So thank you so much, everybody, and have an absolutely wonderful night, day, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is by you.